Hey everyone, thank you for tuning in again. My name is Felicia Scalzetti, and I'm the Crowd Fellow representing the Ordinary People Society and the Alabama Election Protection Network. And I cover the Wiregrass region and Central Alabama. So we've had a lot of new developments with redistricting, primarily in Auburn, Alabama, and Tuscaloosa and Birmingham. But first, I want to touch on statewide redistricting. On Monday, we had a panel of judges, of federal judges, throw out Alabama's congressional map as racial gerrymandering and violating the voting rights protection. This is really important for local redistricting because we've seen a lot of the same arguments used that were used to make this racially gerrymandered congressional map being used on the local level to justify maps that are not promoting equity for residents of municipalities. So, for example, in Auburn, Alabama, Tuesday night, the city proposed maps passed and the city council rejected the NAACP community proposed map. They had a consultant there who also participated and was instrumental in this statewide process. And many of the same arguments he used to say that minorities in Auburn did not meet the criteria for another district was identical. So he was using a lot of the same language and a lot of the same arguments that we saw in the statewide process. Auburn is currently 37% minority, and they have 8 wards, and only 1 out of those 8 wards is currently a majority minority district. Also of concern was that singular majority minority district is not actually over 50% Black. It's a majority minority district because there is a lack of college student voting in that district. So I'm concerned going forward that there's going to be a incentive for people to not register college students to vote and to not bring them into this voting process because it could potentially dilute the votes in the only majority minority district that they do have now. So that is definitely a cause for concern going forward. In Tuscaloosa, the redistricting process is still ongoing. There have been some communication between the city council and the community members who have brought forward this alternative map, but things will likely move very quickly in the next few weeks. So please keep your eyes peeled for that and get in touch with your elected representatives. In Birmingham, the process has just begun as of last week. The city has adopted guidelines and they will be potentially having a public hearing in another week or two. I believe a date has not been determined yet. The reason that we're suddenly seeing this massive upswing of redistricting efforts is that by state law, all jurisdictions have to present a redistricting plan by February 12th, which is 6 months after the census data was released. It just says plan, I'm not paraphrasing, and there's a lot of difference in what a plan might be. It could be a final map, it could just be a concept. So all maps will not necessarily be done by February 12th, but this process, these jurisdictions need to lay out what their process is going to be for doing that by the 12th. And they have another 6 months in addition to that to actually pass these maps and get them done. So we'll likely see a surge of jurisdictions, those who have not yet redistricted, try to get it done really in the next few weeks. So if you've been paying attention, but you really haven't seen anything about your local jurisdiction, please reach out and ask them what's going on because it's likely on their minds now and they're likely aware of that. We've kind of gone from a process where a lot of jurisdictions did not know what their plans were going to be and what they were going to do. And now that we're coming up against this hard deadline, all of a sudden everybody's just sort of scrambling a little bit. And so things are moving very, very fast. That makes it very hard to keep tabs on. And when you do get involved with local redistricting in an area, such as like Auburn or in Tuscaloosa or in other jurisdictions that we're keeping tabs on, that tends to be a lot of time and effort, which takes away from finding out this information about other jurisdictions. So information gathering, as usual, staying on top of where people are at in this process, and just sort of, the just general disjointed nature of redistricting It is very promising, again, that the congressional maps were found to be racially gerrymandered, but I really think that the intention in drawing maps should not be that they're definitely going to go to a lawsuit. They should be, what can we do to make sure that our community is properly represented in these maps? Like, that should be the primary concern coming into this process. And I have not seen that really be at the forefront of a lot of city councils' minds. It's hard to be unbiased about this because I have some strong feelings about how things have been handled in different jurisdictions. There's a general praise for what has happened with the congressional maps, and yet that praise does not seem to extend to their own jurisdictions. And by what I mean by that is that I've seen a lot of elected officials, locally elected officials, praise the decision that the congressional maps were found to be racially gerrymandered, and yet are not taking that same analysis and that same critical eye to their own cities and to their own jurisdictions. I'm not saying that they can't be happy about what's happened congressionally. I'm happy about what's happened with the congressional map. But we need to take that same energy and we need to be looking at how our cities are being divided up. And we need to look at how our counties are being divided and how our towns are being divided. This is not just about the congressional map. So I really need officials to not just bask in the glow of other people's victories, but really take that attitude home. I'm also really very over officials praising individuals in their community for coming out and speaking their voice, and then just absolutely not heeding that at all, and just talking over their constituents and deciding that the act of holding a public hearing is enough. A public hearing is not a forum to let people be mollified. It's a forum for elected officials to listen. It is a forum for them to take feedback in and then have actions around that feedback. I'm not saying that every piece of feedback given by a constituency needs to be, addressed or needs to be integrated. Like, we've all said silly things in our lives. But if you have a large number of people showing up and telling you something, and then you don't listen, and then you point to holding public hearings as the reason why no one should be pointing fingers at you for not listening, you've kind of lost the narrative there. You kind of lost the story on what you're there to do. You are there to represent your constituents. You are not there to pat yourself on the back for doing a hard job or for putting in X number of hours or X number of minutes into a task. I promise you that for people who work full-time jobs and then are also trying to engage in this process on top of that, they're putting in a lot more hours than you are. And frankly, it's been really disturbing to see that attitude proliferate. And this is exactly why people are not crazy about getting involved in the first place. This is what turns people off from getting involved in their local goings-ons, is because they are afraid of being met with this sort of attitude. Now, we have not seen this everywhere. I just want to be clear. Huntsville, for example, did a great job of listening and collaborating with their constituents. And there are other towns and cities. So I'm not talking about looking out of state. I mean, look to cities in your own state, look to towns and jurisdictions in your own state who are doing the right thing, and think about what you could be doing to emulate them instead of falling back on your own ego. Again, just expect things to move very quickly in the next couple of weeks. We still have a lot of towns and jurisdictions that have not completed redistricting. It is a lot easier to get maps changed or additions added when they are still in the draft phases and not a presented map to City Council. So the time to get in is now. Again, if you do not know if your town has redistricted or not, if they're going to, just give them a call, email your rep, find out what the deal is. If you need help, please do not hesitate to reach out. I'd be more than happy to assist you. The other fellows feel the same way. And we just really want to make sure that people are aware of and engaged in this process, and that we can get the most equitable maps for our communities here. So thanks again for tuning in to join the crowd. I can't wait to bring you more updates about local redistricting. And again, if you need anything, just reach out and let us know. Can't wait to see you again.